Hello and welcome to another X-Ray Tech video. Today we're going to be discovering Integromat. So if you're new to the no and low code space and you're interested in some of the best automation tools in the world, Integromat is right up there with Zapier. Now the major difference between the two is that Integromat is a lot more technically capable, but it's a little bit more difficult to use. So if you're used to Zapier and you want to see what else is out there, this Integromat tutorial is going to be a great place to start. So in this tutorial we're going to be doing two things. One is to create an archive of all Slack messages that get sent in a specific channel. And the second is to delete those records that we create inside of the archive. Now this tutorial is just designed to give you an overview and to let you learn and see some of the power with Integromat. Let's get started. For this tutorial, we're going to be using Airtable, Slack, and Integromat. So if you have your account set up, we can dig in. Looking at our Airtable base, we have a message body, sender, send date, and a link. This is just going to be a basic structure that we have in our Airtable base to just set up and log the information that gets sent on Slack. So notice that the first field is a formula field. That's just another best practice for Airtable. You always want to use that first field to be a formula. Now going into Integromat, hopping in our tutorials folder here, we're going to be creating a new scenario focused on a trigger that happens in Slack. So we're going to go ahead and name it Slack message, save our tutorial here, and we are going to add our first module. Now, if you search it, you can get Slack right away, and immediately you can see all of the capabilities that Slack has inside of Integromat. And just a point of difference here, Integromat is going to have a lot more functions with the integrations that it has. So Slack, you can simply perform more actions, whereas Zapier is going to have much more limited functionality with a wider variety of applications connected to Zapier. So we can go ahead and select our channel here, our tutorials channel. And this is a really important point. Choose manually where to start. So when you choose manually where to start in Integromat, it really helps you just get good test data, because that's how we build the automation, right? We need really good test data. So in this case, we have the client message ID, we have the message itself, the text, the user, which is also an ID, and the team, which is also an ID. So we're going to need to do a couple extra steps here to actually get these data points for who sent this message and be able to add that to the Airtable base. So the next thing we need to do is get a user based off of that first ID. So here we are hovering over users here. You can see that the first module sort of swells and contracts. That's how you know where the variable is coming from in Integromat. So we're going to choose where to start again. We're going to choose manually, grab that first message, and this is something that you'll need to do every time you want to test the automation. So here we are, the results from our second Slack step here. We actually get the person ID and information. We get whether or not they were deleted. We get their real name, their time zone, a whole bunch of things about this user. And we're gonna add all of these things into our Airtable base so we can just create a simple log. So we're gonna create that record, and we're gonna select our tutorials base. Our Slack message saver table, and then we get all of the fields inside of Airtable just pop right up there. So see that all of these variables come from step 2, all of those variables come from step 1, and we're gonna add the text from step 1, and we're gonna add the sender name from step 2. Now, Integromat has some really powerful inline functions that you can do. Normally in Zapier, this would require an extra step, an extra formatter step, but in Integromat, you can use that menu alongside the variables and actually capitalize names or be able to change formats of strings or do more complicated technical things actually in line in any of these modules that you have. So you even have a date function in a date format that you can put the Slack date variable inside of and be able to restructure that date format in line. So again, this is a major difference between Integromat and Zapier. With Zapier, you would need to do a lot of those functions in formatter steps, whereas in Integromat, you can use these sort of utility functions in line with the module of, in this case, Airtable. So let's rerun this one more time. We're gonna choose manually where to start. We're gonna click run and see what happens. And there we are. The message body, the sender, the send date, all get added into a new record inside of Airtable. Now, inside of Airtable, you can also do some of those inline functions inside of the formula fields to be able to structure the date exactly how you'd like. This is just part of the power of Airtable formulas, not so much an Integromat feature. So here we are, we have 3 messages that we just added here into our tutorial database. Now let's pretend there's some old messages. So at the end of the day here, or the end of a month maybe, or 6 months, you want to start deleting messages. Now the reason that we picked deletion of a message is because the delete function specifically is not anywhere on the Zapier platform. You cannot use a deleting function through no code through Zapier. But in Integromat, you can actually delete records and delete other things inside of automations. So be careful with that, for one, but 2, it is a really powerful feature that is more unique to Integromat as opposed to Zapier. So if you are looking to delete records in a no-code way, Integromat's going to be able to do that a lot easier for you. Inside of Airtable, we are just adding a filtering mechanism. So in this case, anything in this view that is older than a month, then we want it to show up in this view. And when something pops into this view, we want to trigger an automation to delete that record. So this is going to be a automation inside of Integromat to delete old messages that you have. So our first module is going to be Airtable. We're going to watch the records, and we're going to be able to specify which view we want to watch those records in. So we're going to grab our tutorials database, and then we are going to go to our Slack message saver table. And here we are. We actually need a created date or a last modified date inside of Airtable in order to do the function of watching. So in this case, we'll add a last modified date into there so that we can trigger the automation. Integromat looks at the created date or the last modified date as sort of an anchoring point to understand whether or not it can trigger an automation. So we're going to use the last edited date. You could use either one, it really doesn't matter, just you need to have one. And then the label field is going to be the message ID. That's what the just first variable is that's going to get pulled by Integromat. So again, to test this, we are going to choose manually where we want to start. We are going to grab that first record here and hit run. The results are right in front of us. We have both bundles inside of that view. So you have the message from Matt and the message from Tom. And then we are going to delete a record. So when we click on that delete module, we're going to be asked similar sequence of questions. What is the base? What is the table? And the most important question is, what is the record ID? So once we configure that deletion module here, we're going to choose where to start. So let's run. And next thing you know, 2 records got deleted. That view is now clear of old messages, and that first view still has that one message in it. So I hope this video has been helpful, giving you a one-on-one on Integromat. There is a bunch of really cool functionality in Integromat that is just way easier to do from a technical perspective in Integromat over Zapier, but both automation platforms are excellent at what they do, and it's really just a matter of the right tool for the right job. So I hope this tutorial was helpful, giving you a lay of the land of some things that are possible in Integromat versus Zapier, and of course, links and resources are in the description down below. So don't forget, keep the flow.